Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, we interview Michael Munson about an effort to submit and pass a new Housing for All initiative in Eureka, one that seeks to provide increased housing options while also addressing the dearth of parking in Old Town. Also, the Lady of the Dunes cold case has a macabre connection to an unsolved local double homicide. We'll bring you those details. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. Top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. The lack of affordable housing in Eureka and all of Humboldt County has long been an issue. But in recent years, as demand skyrockets and supplies have stayed low, the numbers crunch has become a burden for many families. For renters often living paycheck to paycheck, that means that the available housing stock is extremely expensive and hard to find even when you have the money. Renting a place now too often consumes a disproportionately large percentage of people's monthly budgets. And so in order to keep a roof over their heads, families often have to sacrifice other needs and even their overall quality of life. Local governments and politicians are keenly aware of this issue and, given political and budgetary constraints, are working to supply more housing and ultimately bring down those prices. But given the complicated nature of sociology and economics, it's too often a guessing game as to which steps are necessary and which lead to further economic injury or no measurable improvement at all into this complicated debate. A new effort is underway within the city of Eureka to pass an initiative that will help ameliorate these issues while also addressing another pressing city problem, the lack of parking in Old Town. 2 city-owned parking lots were recently designated by the city as potential sites for new affordable housing projects at 5th and D Streets and 6th and L Streets. The Wiyot Tribe's Dishgama program won the right to develop those parcels. The initiative, meanwhile, focuses on the site of what used to be Jacobs Junior High as a potential location to build more affordable housing. Which plan has more merit? Are they mutually exclusive? And given the size and scope of the problem, will either or both be enough to actually make a significant difference in the burden people are facing? After the break, we interview Michael Munson, a local sponsor of the Housing for All initiative.
Friends and supporters of Keat TV, we are calling all who have a passion for public television on the North Coast. Keat is looking for a diverse group of people to join its Community Advisory Board, or CAB. CAB members play an advising role to management and act as Keat's ambassadors within the community. Meetings are held quarterly on Zoom. Go to keat.org, find the link for CAB, and get involved today. We look forward to meeting you.
So thanks for joining us via Zoom. We have a list of questions here we can just go through if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, so first of all, to be clear, though you state in some of the statements I've read in the press that the initiative has provisions to preserve parking on public lots downtown where housing has been proposed, you're not opposed to the Dishgama project at 5th and D and 6th and L Streets, is that right?
No, we're not.
So,
we believe that really is a holistic approach to providing housing. It's going to use local contractors, local workers, provide local housing. We think that's a good project, and we're certainly not opposed to it.
Okay, great. How can you describe for us, since you're in the middle of it, how the initiative process works in Eureka? I know you have to collect, I think, 1,600 signatures, but can you give us sort of a rundown of what you're having to do to get this before voters?
Yeah, we collected 2,811 signatures. We only needed about 1,600. Mm-hmm. From here, the registrar needs to validate the number of signatures. So they'll go through a process where they have 30 days to validate those signatures. From there, they can choose to adopt the initiative directly and forego putting it on the ballot or the cost to the public. They could decide to place it on the March 2024 ballot, or they could ask for more information, which is probably likely, which they must complete within 30 days. And at that point, they could either go back to the original 2 and decide to adopt it or put it on the ballot.
So basically, they have the option of asking for more information to do research and then make a decision?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you hold out any hope that they may just adopt your proposal?
There's always hope, but I don't think so.
Okay. Now, what are you thinking the neighbors are going to say around Jacobs in particular? I know that NIMBYism, not in my backyard, has long been a problem, especially with affordable housing, and you're proposing a massive project in that neighborhood. Do you have any sense of what people around there think about it?
Yeah, we did quite a bit of canvassing before, collecting these signatures and before. there's quite a few people who are involved, very much in favor of this. There's a few that aren't, but I think education is the key here. That lot's been sitting blighted for decades now, as long as I can remember, and this would be a major addition. What we're proposing over there is to provide more of a community access type situation. We're looking at keeping the soccer field, maybe a community center as well. Adding those units of all income levels, and not just multifamily. Single family can be over there as well. I think if people really look into what the possibilities are here, that they would be very much in favor of it. We've done a lot of due diligence. We've talked to a lot of developers. There's a lot of developers that are very much interested in this project, but the key to it is getting it rezoned to where they can actually put a project like this forward. It's very difficult for a developer to get a rezoning done. It's difficult for us to get a rezoning done, but that's why we're in this process, to open up the options for the school district, and not just have it a commercial yard as what CHP is proposing that they would like to do with it. At that point, we think that there's a much better use for it. I think the school district also believes that more housing and more kids for their school district, especially right next to one of their schools, would be a much better option for them, and much more economically feasible for the long run for them as well.
Yeah. Now, so you have to rezone it. What's it zoned currently, and what's the zoning that you're seeking exactly?
I believe it's commercial. We're looking for multifamily.
Okay.
So single multifamily residential.
And there's no particular developer in the hopper right now? It's still, that part of it's open, or is that something that you're have already decided?
It would go out to bid. It would be whoever the school district decides to contract with. There's several that are interested. I'll let them come forward on their own, but definitely there's interest out there by the development community.
How expensive is that parcel? Do you know what the asking price is for it?
The rumors are in the $4 million neighborhood, but if we go through rezoning, who knows what the property would be worth? I would think that it would be worth more rezoned than it is now, and maybe that would drive a premium, especially if there were multiple developers that were bidding against each other. That could be good for the school district and good for the community.
Absolutely, and I'm sure the school district, anytime you are talking about getting money to a school district, that's going to be helpful for the community. How many units are you talking with this project? And you mentioned that it would be mixed use. Is there a percentage that you're looking at in terms of how much would be single family, how much would be mixed use, or anything like that you could tell us?
No, we're going to leave that open to the development, whatever. It's really hard until you get in there and start crunching numbers. There's about 8.5 acres that could be developable for that. So part of it's going to be left for this community project. Like I said, the soccer field, maybe a community building. Whether it's a gymnasium or something to that effect would be determined. But, it really depends on, what is economically feasible for the developer to put forth. I think a lot of times you get into those projects and being involved with them in the past, trying to raise funds for them. You have a vision of what you want, you start crunching numbers, and the vision gets adjusted a little bit. But, who knows how many units, but hundreds at least.
Yeah. For a lot of our viewers, I think they may not even know what and this is no slight on our viewers, most people in, life would know what a housing element is in the city's general plan. Can you describe for us what that is and how technically this is an amendment of that document?
Well, basically, the state puts forth a housing element demand on, how many units they would like to see developed. Right now, what's happened is the city has gone forward with that, and basically said that they want to put forth so many affordable units. And what they've done is they've identified unit or parcels in Eureka, most of them in the downtown area, that they're going to basically put out to bid at no cost to the developer. So they would get the land for free. What that's going to do is, of course, lower the cost for them, but it would eliminate a lot of the downtown parking in what's really been a commercial zone or the industrial zone. So there's reasons why we have residential zones. There's reasons why we have commercial zones. We have to have a place for businesses to operate and consolidate their services. Not to say that we can't have housing in those units, but it has to be thought through and done correctly. I think eliminating 641 parking spaces downtown and then adding who knows how many hundreds of units down there and all the parking that would require would be very difficult to make business viable in the downtown for a lot of the businesses. I own 2 businesses downtown. I know that would be very difficult for me as well.
Yeah.
But that's not really what this is about. This is about the housing for all. I think we can have that housing. There's another project going on right now that's proposing 135 units with parking, and that's the type of thing we like to see. And that's right next to one of my businesses. I'm all for it. There's been a lot of talk about not my backyard. This one's right next door to me, and I'm all for it. So
well, there you go.
I don't think that not in my backyard really applies.
Yeah, well, that's good. How did you guys arrive at the Jacobs School site for this, this particular project? Was there a review of various sites, and this one seemed the most suitable, or was it just, obvious because it's there and it's not being used?
We spent a lot of time going through all of those units downtown, or in the city limits for that matter. We identified every possible unit that was vacant. Then we tried to identify every possible unit that's out there that could be developed. Right now, Jacobs is at the top of our list as the most viable unit to quickly be able to add housing elements to Eureka. It's close to services, shopping, restaurants, bus lines. It's a straight shot to the hospital down Harris. It just makes sense. I also own a property in that neighborhood, and I'm very much for it. I think it'll help my property value.
Yeah, and I mean also Winco's right there, and the shopping centers, the malls just down the hill. It's a centrally located place for the school.
And there's a surprising amount of restaurants that are walkable distance. A couple of schools. There's more room to expand in the schools that are out there. Yeah. Probably in the neighborhood of 300 more kids, maybe 400 can go to the existing schools without any additions. So there's a lot of room for expansion on that side of town that would really be a great neighborhood to raise kids in.
The south side of Eureka doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. I think that's a nice little neighborhood.
That's a great neighborhood over there.
Yeah. So one of the things that happens with these affordable housing projects is often it's a partnership between public and private interests to help make the unaffordable affordable in terms of developers. Is that something that you guys are thinking might be in the offing here, or is that going to be entirely up to the developer?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's up to the developer, but those projects would be forefront. I mean, Danco's done a ton of these projects.
Exactly.
These things happen all the time with private investment.
Yeah.
There's several other contractors who very much know how to do these types of projects as well. And I think it really, at the end of the day, it comes down to who's going to fit the best on the project, and who, if we do go with the Jacobs site, who the school district wants to work with.
Yeah. Now, so if this goes on to the, you said March 2024 ballot initiative, or the vote you mentioned as a possibility, when would the project get rolling? Is there any timeline that you have identified if that's the case?
No, there's no real timeline, but I wouldn't say the timeline's much different than what they're looking at on the downtown lots that they're proposing. I would say
Gotcha.
The timeline's similar.
Yeah. Now, I mean, were you initially, this sounds like you are in principle opposed to what they're doing with the 2 lots and Dishkema, but because those have already gone forward, you're not going to oppose the actual projects. Is that correct in what I'm thinking? Because
No, I'm not opposed to those projects at all. I
Okay.
am opposed to losing parking, but not the project itself.
Okay.
I'd like to see an alternative come up with. I think there's win-win situations all the way across the board here.
Mm-hmm.
And to reiterate, I am very much in favor of the housing project.
Sure.
I know it's going to be very difficult down there. I actually owned a business right down there, and the parking has become more and more difficult over time. I've moved to a spot where there is more parking that I'm not quite sure how that'll work in the future, going forward, if I'll have to make another adjustment, but time will tell.
Since you do own businesses down there, could you describe for our viewers what the impact is of not having enough parking?
I own a restaurant. I own a financial planning firm. Mm-hmm. The restaurant, if there's not parking spots within a reasonable distance, people go to a place where they can park next to, so I lose business there. More on my financial planning, a lot of my clients are elderly. They can't walk several blocks. We've adjusted quite a bit and gone virtual with some stuff. We do in-home visits when we can, but for an 85-year-old lady to walk several blocks in the rain to come in and see me, that's probably not going to happen. So I need some sort of parking in that business as well. So I think I'm not alone in that. I think that there's not enough emphasis put on what we do need.
Yeah. We have a guest in the studio today who is a donor, and they were talking about oftentimes they have to park in the muddy parking lot down by the boardwalk, and I can imagine that kind of hike is not something that people want to take in bad weather, and the safety issues that may arise because of some of the people who happen to frequent downtown and Old Town. So those are issues as well.
Right at the top of the list of ones they want to put housing on. To me, that's the crown jewel of Eureka. That should be, shops and, maybe some housing above with something facing the bay that would be a community access type situation. To me, that is absolutely shouldn't be, high density, low income housing. That should be, community purpose. I'm not saying we don't need some low income housing downtown. There's plenty of options for that, but I also think we need the parking to go along with it. And there are answers to that as well.
Yeah. Now, the project mentions pretty heavily downtown revitalization. Does that have to do with more than with just parking? Can you explain what you guys mean by that?
Well, we'd like to see, more business downtown. There's a lot of empty storefronts still. There's people who are already getting scared about what's going on, who are talking about moving their business out of downtown. As our population grows, we're going to need these services, whether it's, storefront shops, restaurants, whatever it is, we need those services. If they don't have any place to park downtown, they're not going to come. I know that there's a big push to get rid of your car, but we're not San Diego. It's not sunshine. It's not sunny 300 days a year here. It's raining. People come from farther away. I've two of my employees live, in Scotia or Fortuna, and they drive in every day. I don't know what the answer would be for them to park somewhere, a park and ride at the end of town, and add a half an hour, 45 minutes to their commute every day. I know I'm not alone. I think there's a lot of people who live in the outlying areas and come into Eureka every day. And, we need parking for the employees. We need parking for the patrons. We also need parking for the people who are going to live down there to create, a viable living space down there. And to think that they're not going to have cars, I just don't think is realistic.
Yeah. Let's talk about the root causes of some of these issues, but especially the affordable housing piece. What do you think causes the affordability to drop so drastically in Eureka in particular? I mean, I know the rest of California has a lot of demand and there's a lot of surrounding competition, which drives the prices up, but it doesn't seem like Eureka has those issues as much. Do you have any thoughts on what might be?
Oh, no, I think it is a supply and demand issue. You look at Humboldt County, especially Eureka. We've got a very thin, long strip along the ocean here with this developable. You look at other areas like, Sacramento or Las Vegas where they can just keep expanding in every direction. It's not so much the dirt that's worth a lot, it's the house that's worth a lot. Here it's quite the opposite. It's the dirt that's worth so much because there just isn't any more dirt available.
Yeah.
So we really have to be smart with what we're using and be a little bit creative. It's probably going to be some urban renewal that's going to have to happen. Some of the blighted buildings are going to have to be replaced. That's a tough issue to tackle because a lot of these are privately owned, and I'm a big proponent of private rights and private ownership. But at some point, if we keep developing and bring the vitality into the area, it's going to be economically unfeasible for them to keep sitting on blighted property. They're going to want to develop it, and so my thought would be go from the other way. Let's not promote it going down in value. Let's promote it going up in value. Let's put things down there that create it to be more valuable and create the development through positive pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I saw was as a list of people who support what you're doing, and it's an impressive list. Can you talk a little bit about your team? I mean, who has funded what you guys are doing, and where do you see it going from here?
Well, Security National originally funded our initiative. There's been a lot of people who've added to that over the way. So we work with Allison Holland mostly on this. So it is Security National with the seed money, but there's a lot of other people involved as well. Where do we see this going? We want it on the ballot. We want the people to decide what's going to be placed down here, not just a few people in the city deciding this is what we're going to do because we want money now. We really want to think this through. This is the time right now to really come up with a good plan and make changes to our general plan that fill in some of the voids and deficits that the original general plan made. It was a different dynamic when they passed the original plan. We've got another set of challenges now that we really have to think about. And, this is an unprecedented housing crisis. There's answers out there, but just, filling up downtown and using up our crown jewels and not providing any parking for the people who live there, or the people who work there, or the people who want to come visit there, or the tourists is not the option. There are parcels out there that we can use. There are projects we can do and put parking along with the projects, and we can meet this housing element and then some. We just have to be smart about it. Now's the time to do it.
Just briefly, to give you a chance to respond to some criticism, Rob Arkley is a polarizing figure in this community. What would you say to people who are concerned about his involvement?
Well, I've been on every meeting with this, and I haven't seen Rob on one. He hasn't, he's not on the meetings. I haven't talked to Rob in a couple of years, so I would say that he's not the one, that is sitting in on these meetings and doing the work here.
Now, my next question is this something that you guys can duplicate? I mean, like if you find out that this project either works or doesn't, however that goes, is it something that you're going to try to keep on going where you find other suitable lots and maybe kick off a similar process?
Well, we're taking it one step at a time right now. We feel pretty confident. We were able to raise 2,811 signatures in 3 weeks. That was pretty unprecedented.
That's impressive. Yeah, for sure.
That's almost twice of what we needed. I think we've got a lot of traction here. We had a lot of positive community outreach. We're continuing to get more. I think people realize that the direction we're headed is not the direction we need to be headed. I think you're going to see this gain momentum, and I think we're going to be successful. So, we're going to take that and keep our focus on the ball in front of us for the time being.
A quick question for you as an Old Town business owner. Going down to Old Town at times now, it does seem rather blighted. What is the health of the business community down there? And do you think that this, a change in the general plan and the allotment of future housing and the preservation of parking could help fix some of that direction?
I think the future's bright.
Okay.
We've got a lot of positive projects going on. The problem is if we run all of the business out of downtown, where is this business going to go? How do you're running our tax base away as well? I think we can have it. I think we can have the housing. I think we can have the parking, and I think we can have the vitality. But going back to my original statement, now is the time to make those adjustments to make sure that we get everything we need.
Absolutely. What are the next steps in terms of the next few weeks? I mean, find out what the city council is going to do, and then what
we're
do you have to
hurry up and
accomplish?
wait mode at this point, waiting for their reaction. I'm sure they'll have, we'll have some opportunity to address some of the issues that that they want to address, and then we'll be looking at getting our campaign going for the ballot.
Yeah. How is the selection of a developer? That's going to be the schools, you said. Is that right?
Well, on that particular project, this doesn't necessarily preclude any of these other projects from going forward. Sure. It throws a few elements at them that they need to provide some parking for these units that they're going to put in and come up with an answer. It doesn't mean that the parking has to be right there with the unit, but there has to be an option. Maybe for every two lots we develop, we put in a parking garage or a parking structure or something on the third unit. We can get these units and we can get the parking. So that's really where we're trying to do, is to make sure that we maintain the vitality of Old Town and that there's something there that we can use going forward. We're Eureka, the Victorian seaport. Let's keep developing that thought as well as the housing element.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike, for joining us and for giving us such a thorough interview and giving such appropriate information. I thank you for taking the time.
No, I really appreciate you taking the time as well, James. If anybody has any questions, they can always get on our website. It's eurekahousingforall2024.org.
Okay.
The last thing I'd leave you with is do your own research. Go out and look at these. There's been a lot of mudslinging going on our initiative, and I don't think people are really looking at what it's about. Everybody likes to point at the parking. It's not about the parking. It's about the housing. The parking's a component of the housing, but we really need to have a better general plan. The one we have is flawed. It can be much better, and now's our opportunity to make it better.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Bye-bye.
We have such a treasure in Keat TV. I think everybody should be a member. Think about all of the news programs, all of the mystery programs and masterpiece programs that are available to us here. I love them all. It's hard for me to decide what is my favorite program because there are so many. So please, become a member today. And thank you.
The resolution of a long-standing and rather famous cold case murder has a startling connection to a Humboldt County double homicide from more than 70 years ago. According to the news website SF Gate, in July 1974, the body of a woman was discovered on the beach in Provincetown, Massachusetts, with teeth and hands missing, which made identification difficult. She became known as the Lady of the Dunes. Author Joe Hill, son of famed horror writer Stephen King, made headlines about the case in 2015 when he spotted the victim as an extra in the movie Jaws, based on sketches and descriptions that had been circulating for years. This captured the public's attention, and investigative work in 2022 successfully identified the victim at last as Ruth Marie Terry, who was 37 when she was killed. With that information, authorities were ultimately able to identify a suspect in the case, Terry's husband, Guy Rockwell Moldavin, who had a history of being investigated for murder. In 1950, for instance, Moldavin was investigated in Humboldt County for a double murder, that of truck driver Henry Baird and his teenage girlfriend Barbara Kelly on Table Bluff. Authorities at the time believed that Moldavin, a Fortuna resident, had left the area just prior to those murders. And in 1960, Moldavin made national news as a suspect in the disappearance of his wife Manzanita Mearns and her daughter Dolores Ann, whose bodies were later found in the family's septic tank. Police in that case were unable to produce enough evidence to convict. Moldavin later worked as a radio DJ in Salinas and at one point pontificated on how killing had become a habit in modern society. He died in 2002. For our last story, a high-ranking executive within Crowley, the firm behind the Humboldt County offshore wind project, has apparently been fired after the company received complaints of sexual harassment. Crowley's Director of Corporate Communications, David DeCamp, confirmed to the Lost Coast Outpost that Jeffrey Andraney, Vice President of Crowley Wind Services, is no longer with Crowley. He didn't provide any more information. The company recently received a complaint against Andraney alleging sexual harassment of a subordinate Crowley employee at a bar during an offshore wind conference in Sacramento. According to the Outpost, Matthew Marshall from the Redwood Coast Energy Authority told company leadership that numerous local women had come forward to indicate that this accusation was not the result of an isolated event. No further details were provided. That's it for this week. Have a safe and fun Labor Day weekend, all 3 days. Stay tuned, stay informed.